I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Relativity, here with Emmy-nominated Cate Hall, Makeup and Hair Supervisor on Season 5 of The Crown. Cate, first of all, I want to know something. What do you most love about your experience on The Crown? You've been on it for some time. It's a big chunk of your life.
Yeah, it's been completely life-changing. I mean, that sounds like a cliche, but people use it too easily. But in this case, it really has. It's changed my life. And there are too many things, I think, to kind of to try and nail it down to one thing. Obviously, the people, it's like this remarkable family of people. But to have the opportunity to get good at my job with, so many wigs to practice with and to play with, and to be given, real commitment to kind of quality. So the producers, everybody just wants you to do a great job. So you have everything behind you to do that. And it's just been a privilege. It's been a privilege to work on something with such a commitment to quality and to have that continuity for 5 years of just developing those techniques and those skills. I mean, I just don't think I even dreamed it was possible to do a job like The Crown. So yeah, it's been an amazing thing.
So you tell me that you liked it, so that's good. Like, I'm glad you liked it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I can imagine, like, of all the shows to spend time on, something like this as an artist, wow, what a gift. And you'll take it with you for the rest of your life, and that's so cool. Let's talk more about season 3. The third episode of season 5, the third episode.
I was like,
oh, and I'm like, hang on. 3, 5, potato.
Well, I mean, we're still finishing season 6, so I'll probably be.
I'm gonna try to like persuade you to tell me all the details later. So the third episode of season 5 is a real change of pace because we focus on the Muhammad Al Fayed story, the origin story. It's like the Batman origin story and the Al Fayed origin story. It's a real throwback to The Crown as a period drama, that's why it's such a highlight episode. And it means for the creative teams like you and your team, there's a lot of opportunities for new work. So I just wanted to know, was that exciting or nerve-wracking? What's your mindset like when you get something like that?
It's exciting. Yeah, we live for those opportunities. And I think it's not only is it period, but it's another world. So it's Egypt period, which is brilliant because it's even further removed from the world that we live in. And I think for us, that meant, real diversity, and it meant different hair texture and we actually traverse sort of the 1940s, the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And then we have other real challenges like Wallace. We had the same actress playing Wallace in the 1940s as Wallace dying in the late 1980s. And I think, thankfully, we have a director who kind of inspires courage, I would say. If he told me to walk off a cliff, I'd be like, all right then. So, we approached it with this great team. And I think the opportunity to research all those periods and to try and realize those characters. And I think the funny thing with the Al Fayeds is, I think Muhammad Al Fayed is really, really likable. Like, he's a bit of a superstar in that episode. And I think that was a kind of a surprise to everybody. And that's something we're really proud of as well.
And a huge factor is Celine Dor is so sensational in this episode. Like, he just transforms, and frankly, I didn't even know there was any makeup and hair on him because I was so enraptured with his performance. Can you talk us through his transformation? Because there's a lot of work done to make him look
and I wish I could show you, because I think people don't realize. So his wig, when it arrives, it's it's really long, and because it's super curly because it's Egyptian hair, and he sort of looked like this clown because it was just enormous. And to spend hours and hours razoring this wig into the right shape, but somehow it and we have to sort of block out the hair that he does have that's quite dark underneath, and it kind of melds to his skin, and then something happens. So as you're doing all of this stuff, he's doing his faces in the mirror. He's doing the ears, and he sort of says a few lines, and he starts doing all this Muhammad stuff. and it's brilliant because it comes to life in front of your eyes. And I think for him, that's probably what happened for him too, is his own character would start to come to life, in the chair.
Yeah. Do you know how many I hear that all the time about how with makeup and hair artists, you're there sometimes when the actor kind of becomes the character. And I'm curious, how does that make you feel when you hear an actor talk about how your work was so essential and sometimes the turning point for them to transform into the character they're portraying?
Yeah, I mean, that is the whole reason I ever wanted to do my job. I never cared what people look like from a kind of aesthetic or, it was never about beauty for me. When I wanted to do my job, it's because I wanted to create characters. So to have these incredible actors go through this process, and I think the thing that's unique for me in my career so far about The Crown is that suddenly, because my work, I guess, has a pedigree, like it's proven, they're coming to me with this trust, and we're just going into this process together. And I think it's been a real privilege, because it's been super duper collaborative the whole way through. And we do have these moments. So it's not like stars in their eyes, like it's not like this big reveal and then they go, oh, wow, they're here. But there are these moments where you're like, oh, we got a glimmer then. Like we're a little bit closer, and then they'll say, so what if we try this? And I'm like, and I think maybe we need to be a bit braver here, and we need to do this. And together you kind of inch towards, like with Diana, like that she has this permed wig at the beginning of season 5 in that Sam McKnight crop. And we don't start being really brave and actually like cropping the hair because it doesn't grow back and it's really expensive. And then when you're not brave, what happens is you get a different character. So she went through this kind of like Amish Sunday school teacher phase, and then she went through this like cleaning lady called Brenda, and like eventually we went through all these characters, and eventually we're like, aha, we think we found Diana now.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in that process. One day I'm going to make it happen, because I would love to see those hours where actor turns into character and the makeup artists are there doing their thing, and that collaboration starts to really form. It's so fascinating to me. And on that note, go for it. Tell me more.
Well, no, just that it's funny because it's so incremental, and it's sort of couched in loads of casual conversation, and just hours of just really like squinting and looking in the mirror and looking back at the reference and then chucking the reference, and then and then you might go home for the day, and then you might come back the next day, and then you have a breakthrough, so it's like, I think if you were a fly on the wall, you'd be like, oh my goodness, I'm so bored. And then there'd be moments where you're like, oh, I'm glad I finally got a bit of payback for sitting on this wall.
It's hours. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize the painstaking work. I think that's a great word for makeup and hair artists, because it does take time and perseverance, and also this rapport that you have to strike with the people that you're in their faces for hours. Would you give that advice to younger makeup artists about how you've got to strike that rapport with the actor because you're in their faces so often?
Yeah, and I think that's really difficult, because I think especially for a really young hair and makeup artist working with somebody who's maybe in their 60s, and if your reputation isn't proven, I always remember that actually it wasn't the hair and makeup work that was nerve-wracking, it was earning the trust of the actor. And you felt like that was like, there would be a time at which you'd be like, I've got them, they're mine now. But like it would take loads of time. And that's one of the things that I have loved about now being on The Crown in later seasons, is not having to worry about that so much, because it just doesn't seem to happen in the same way. But you still need to find a level with them. So it's like you have to be a bit of a chameleon, because you have to find a bit of yourself that they will like and get on with. So it's always you, but I think you think, so which bit of me is this actor going to identify with or want to talk to? And then and sometimes they don't want to talk, or sometimes they don't want to be touched, you know, so you're really invading someone's space. And that, I think, is the most awkward thing.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot going. It's not just the technical and creative aspects. It's also you have to be a people person. There's a lot. And sometimes you're the therapist.
But also, like, whilst trying to cut a wig, like one hair at a time. So they're like chat and asking you questions, and you're like, oh, I really want to be articulate about like the
yeah.
situation, Israel and Palestine. Like, you're like, I really want to kind of sound like someone who knows what they're talking about, but right now all I can think about is whether I should cut this one hair.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're in focus mode. I get it. Totally get it. There's one actor from season 5. I've got to tell you this because I kind of feel a bit dumb, but it's actually it's a testament to your work. I didn't look up the full cast when I watched the season. A lot of media get the season before the public does, right? So I didn't see any me. I just watched it, and I kept saying, "Who is that playing Camilla? Who is she? I've never heard of her. I don't know her." And then I'm like, "Hang on a second. I've got to look this up." And it's Olivia Williams. How is this possible? And you just, I don't know how you did it, but can you talk me through it? Because she looks exactly like Camilla and nothing like Olivia.
And it's so weird. I know, I feel the same. I still am a bit like, what? Partly that's casting. I mean, I don't know how they had the foresight to know that, because I certainly didn't then get the casting and think, well, this is genius. I thought, how's this ever going to work? But the wig does a lot of the work, because the wig is big, and it's, you know, Camilla's wig is so, her hair has been the same for such a long time. So that was sort of instant, as in instant after many hours. But I think the great thing with Olivia was, again, she came to it without any vanity. And she really likes Camilla. I mean, she, you know, everyone falls in love with their characters. So it wasn't like she was being insulting, but she didn't want to do a kind of a beautified, overly manicured version. Like, Camilla is mucking out horses. You know, she's not having her manicure done every 5 seconds. And Olivia Williams, and she spent a lot of time in the sun, and there's all this stuff, and Olivia Williams just absolutely got on board with all of it. And she, to the point where you would do her makeup and then she'd be like, hold on, and then she'd just sort of get her finger in and smudge all her eye makeup like this, and then she'd be like, yeah, great. Wow. And I think we were lucky as well that Camilla has a fringe, because Olivia's eyebrows are really, really distinctive, and there's no way we would have been able to like pluck or dye or whatever, anything to those. So I think because she has the fringe, we get away with so much more, because it covers the,
yeah, it covers some of her face. She nailed it. I'm so impressed with her. And of course, a lot of the attention goes on to Elizabeth Debicki. She's just remarkable as Diana, but I wanted to just give a quick shout out to Olivia Williams, because she's really, really good.
Yeah, and I think her chemistry with Dominic as well. I mean, I think it's a real love story, and I mean,
really
it's tender and it's beautiful.
It's nice to get that insight. Of course, this is not a documentary. It's a fly on the wall, maybe this might have happened type dramatic series, but it's just nice to get a little insight into perhaps what it might be like between Camilla and Charles, because sometimes she's been so villainized over the years. And so I thought that was really quite refreshing from Peter Morgan and to give us that perspective. So Elizabeth Debicki. So after Emma Corrin and that look from the last season, Elizabeth turns up, and I just don't know what more I can say, but she is such a spinning image of Diana, and her look, particularly in the Panorama interview, and of course in the earlier interviews. Talk me through what you were going for and how difficult it was.
So, I mean, obviously, brilliant casting, couldn't ask for more. I think it was about finding our grown-up Diana, our Diana who knew who she was and what she wanted. And also that kind of, she was turning into a megastar. So that Sam McKnight haircut in 1991 was absolutely groundbreaking. But it's not necessarily that easy to pull off. So we still, you know, we wanted her to be really beautiful. So, and we had to kind of evolve, because obviously hairdressing in 1991 to where we leave Diana in 1997, there was a huge period of evolution. And so we started with those more kind of ashy, less complex tones with quite dark roots, and that kind of rough perm. And then we graduated to a more glossy, like it was ever glossier, ever more blow dried. And so we sort of leave her as a bombshell, I think, by the end of season 5. And although she was psychologically still obviously really, really damaged and upset, I think she also had a power. She found her power, and she found her star persona, and she was a grown-up and she was a mother. And so we really had to find all of that in Elizabeth, which we didn't with Emma, because I think she was such an ingenue. So yeah, it was a much more manufactured look. It was much less natural, which was cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was also, sorry.
No, go for it.
It's just that it was also like top to toe. So that was the thing that people don't realize, because Elizabeth is not very brown. She's very, very, very pale.
Yeah.
And so there was constant spray tanning and makeup, because she spends a lot of time in swimwear on yachts and stuff. So there was lots and lots of makeup everywhere, you know.
Really? That never occurred to me. But yes, of course, that would have been so important. Diana wasn't as pale as Elizabeth is, which is so ironic given Elizabeth's Australian and she should have a perfect tan at all times. No. You know, I want you to tell me everything about season 6, but I think the better question is, because I'm just looking forward to it so much. We've all been on this journey, right? For 5 seasons. We're looking forward to season 6. We know what's coming. We all do. I'm kind of anticipating the death of Diana, and also I'm nervous about it. What can you say, obviously without spoilers, what do you think about, given that you've been involved in season 6 and I think it's almost done, what can you say about it in terms of how you feel about how the show has depicted that whole storyline?
So all I would say is that I think every single person on the show is just so committed to authenticity and to kind of dramatic truth. So, that experience was appalling. It was appalling for Diana. It was appalling for her children. It was appalling for the royal family. And I think, this show brings great weight to that. And I think, truthfully, I think it's an examination in some way of the media and Diana's relationship with the media, and a kind of honest look at how that contributed both to her psychology and to the situation. And I like to think it takes a very, like you say, it has the kind of honesty to take a broad view of how that situation impacted every single one of those people, like Prince Charles and Camilla, because I think it was just utterly devastating. And I think I'd like to think people will appreciate how it was handled.
Yeah, well, so far so good in terms of what The Crown has delivered and given up to audiences. So I have full faith that the team has done a beautiful job. I'm so looking forward to it. And in the meantime, congratulations on some great work once again on season 5, Cate, and thank you for your time.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you.